So in today's episode, I am going to show you how to make a simple Md5 scanner for a antivirus in Delphi. So we're going to start by opening Delphi. We're going to get ourselves a new VNC project. I'm going to stretch the format here and change the title quickly. That should do us. We're just going to save this and make sure that we save it somewhere where we can find it again. This is important because, if you want to update your project at some point, you're going to have to know where the files are. So I'm just going to name mine My Simple Antivirus and save it in my YouTube folder. Now I'm going to save the project name, and I'm going to save the project name as My Simple Antivirus as well in the same folder. I'm now going to start adding parts of the graphic user interface. So this bit you can just ignore. I'm just literally just making it look nice. So while I'm making this look nice, let me go into a bit more depth of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making a simple Md5 and file size signature based scan engine. It's going to work by getting the file size and the Md5 hash of a file that you specify and checking it against one that we know is a test file. Right, so now let's start adding some actual functional pieces of our scan engine. So we need one edit box, we need a label so far, and we're just going to make these line up. Yeah. Yeah. Now we're going to add ourselves a couple of buttons because they'll be needed later. About there. Maybe a bit closer to the side. Now we're going to stretch our nice edit box out, and we're going to put some text in our label. Now this is going to be the label for our file that we want to scan. So we're going to put scan file and put it in there so that the user knows where to put their file name. Also, whilst we're doing this, we're going to rename all of the graphic interface pieces so that when we add the code in a minute, we know where each piece is. Now that they're all named, well, now that's named, we're going to name all of the other components so that we don't get them mixed up later on. It's not something that everyone does, but it's a very useful way of keeping track of where everything you've already created is. So we just want to take out part of the name that had decided it was going to be in the caption as well. This is our scan button. We're going to use this to scan our files later. But for now, we're just going to name it and change the text on the outside. Now we're going to add ourselves a list view. This is going to be used to show our results at the end of our scanning. So we're going to add a few columns. The first column is going to be the file name or file path. And we're going to change the width of it so that we can see most of the file path. This one's going to be the file name, and once again, we'll change the size in a minute. but this one's going to be the signature. And we're just gonna give that a decent sized path and change the file name one as well whilst we're there. Now we need to change we need to enable grid lines. It's just something I prefer, and change the view style from icon to report. Now we can see our columns. Whilst we're here, we're going to also rename our list view to something that's actually something we're going to remember later on when we're doing the coding. So we're now going to add ourselves a couple of labels. These are not really necessarily needed, but I just put them in just because if I continue this project, it'll probably need them. So this one's going to be the number of viruses, pieces of malware that we've detected. And to go with this label, we also need a label that we can change to display the number. So we're also going to add one for the scan result. Now this, once again, is not necessary because the scan result will show up in the list view, but it's just something I've added. So we're now going to go through and quickly rename everything so that when we're coding in a minute, we can remember which one's which. This is very important if you want your user interface to change the way you want it to as your code executes. So we're going to quickly finish renaming all these. Some of them don't really need naming, but it's really frustrating if you have loads of them named label. So it's better just to go through in one go and name them all something that corresponds to their use or what they're displaying or something along the line, something useful. So now that's all done, we are going to move on to adding a title. This, once again, has no real functionality, but if a user was using this, it's just there just to display the name of the product or the name of the project. So I'm going to go again with my Simple Antivirus, if I can spell it correctly, and move it into the middle so that it looks right. Just going to save that. It's important to keep saving it. So we're going to rename it to title, just so that when we're coding, we don't use it as something else. And whilst I'm here, I'm just going to quickly rename these panels. Once again, not really needed, but keeps it tidy. So now we're pretty much done with this side. So we're going to move into the coding side. So we're going to need to add a new unit and save our new unit. This one's going to be our config unit, and therefore I'm going to save it as config. This is later going to hold our signatures. And then we're going to add another one, and this is going to hold our scan engine. Now I say scan engine very loosely, but in further episodes it will become a proper engine. So we're going to start off by declaring some other units that we will use eventually. So we're going to declare windows and sysutils. We will be using them, and classes. And our config eventually. But these are our idle Indy components. that will be doing our MD5 hashing for us. And like I said a minute ago, the config. So moving right along, we're going to start by coding our size function. This is literally just going to give us the size of the file we specified. And these functions could also be used to generate signatures. Very basic signatures. So it's going to need a output variable of a string. Although really you could have used integer, and later on in this project I probably will change it to an integer. But we need to specify a variable that goes in, and this one's file path. And that's also a string. So we need a few variables whilst we're doing this. We need a t-file stream, so we're just going to call it f. It's just simpler right now, but you can name it whatever you like. We use a try here, and we're going to change our finally to an accept. So in case of a fault, we're going to return something. So first we need to start off by initializing the t-file stream by calling create and giving it the file path. And we also need to declare how we wish to open it, or what rights we want to open it with. So we're opening it with read. That's all we need for getting the file size. And we simply tell it that the result is f and the size. Now I have cocked up here, and I am narrating this after I've filmed it, and we will come back and fix the error I've just caused. So we're going to free f, as is very useful. As very important. We've created f, and therefore we need to let it go again. And in the accept, we are also going to free f, and we're going to give it a result of 0. Once again, another fault that we will fix later. So we need to copy the title. We need to copy the function name and the variables and put it at the top so we can use it in another unit. Moving right along, we're going to proceed to make our MD5 hash of a file. So I'm going to call it MD5 file, and it needs a variable and an input variable of a constant file name. This is also a string. And when I can spell it right, and it needs to return a string. This is also going to have some variables. We need to declare them variables. It's going to have a file stream and a IDT hash message digit 5, I believe. I think this is another spelling mistake. And we just declare our file stream. In this case, I'm calling it FS. And for some reason, I'm trying to initialize it in a variable. So we're going to start off by initializing our ID MD5, and we need to initialize this by calling create again. Now we're going to declare the we're going to create the file stream, which is what I was just trying to do as in the variable section. And once again, we need to pass it the file name. This time we need to use a few different options to open the file, permissions to open the file. Once again, spelling is getting the best of me. And we're going to start a try. And the result is simply going to equal the ID Md5, and we're going to use the function, I believe it's stream to hash stream to hex. And we can give it our file stream that we've just opened. Now in the finally section, we are going to free the variables we created. And save it and copy the name to declare it at the top. Moving along, we're going to make ourselves our scan function, which is going to be pretty basic, consisting of a few lines of code and only scanning for one signature at the moment. But in future videos, I will show you how to make an extended static database and then an extended dynamic database. So we're going to start off by declaring our procedure. We're going to have the variable of file path again, and as a procedure it doesn't return anything. We need a few variables, and these variables are all strings. So we need size as a string, we need hash as a string, we need file signature, and the result. So I'm just going to call it scan results. Right, now starting the procedure, we need to first get the file size using our function we created earlier to get the file size. I am now creating myself another error I'm going to have to fix in a minute, because I've forgotten that for this tutorial I changed the variable returned by the get size function to a string, thinking it would be simpler for people to get instead of an integer. Now we're going to get hash, and we're going to fill the hash string with get the file using the file Md5 file and the file path once again. Now we're gonna use our file signature string, and we're going to fill that with the Md5 hash that we've just got stored in the hash variable, plus a delimiter, which we'll stick in there in a second, and the file size, which we got and is stored in the file size variable. Now the scan result at this point is going to be yeah, we're going to modify this because scan result is not a good idea to call it that. So we're going to call it scan result string. The scan result string at the minute is going to read clean. This is because after we've scanned it, if there's nothing detected, it will remain clean, and if there is something detected, it will be changed. So if the files, we're now going to put an if function in, and if the file signature is equal to, we're going to leave this blank right now because we're going to add this later. If it is blank, we're going to exit because the function can't continue if there's no signature. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use another if function, and we're going to put sig in here at the minute, and we're going to change that later for the signature. But we're going to do a begin, and this is where, if the file is detected, we will update the GUI to show that the file is detected. So we're going to try and call what is on form 1 our list view. But unfortunately, I hadn't declared the main form yet. I should do so in a second. So here I am, I'm adding the fact that this unit needs to use the main form, which is where our list view is stored. And as you can see, we still have something going wrong here. Okay, I've named it wrong. Right, so spelling mistake again. Very important. So now we have that declared properly. We are going to fill our list view with our variables that we now know is an infected file. So first of all, the caption, which is the first column, is going to be the file path. The sub items, which is your second column, is going to be your, I believe, a file name. I don't know, I might check in a minute and move them around. So yeah, we're gonna leave that as file, as extracting the file name. And the last sub item is going to be the signature. Now, as we don't have a signature yet, I'm just going to leave it blank. Or I'm just going to put virus name in there. And we'll add that in a second. Right, so we're gonna finish this up by changing the number of files detected to 1 and the scan result string to infected, from clear to infected. Now we're going to update the GUI and also change the color of the font to red, which I believe is $3, 4 zeros, and 2 Fs. Now at the end of the function, we're going to take our scan result string and we're going to put it in our scan result, which is a label that we put on the front of the scanner. If I can find it. There it is. So we're going to put our variable in there so that the text shows up on the GUI. And we're going to save it. Now moving on to the config, I would suggest pausing the video right now, as I've pasted them in from another project. But I've copied the constant name for the signature, and I'm going to change where I had put signature as a string and put it in there. Now I'm going to take the virus name, I'm going to copy that in and change where I put virus name and put the constant in so that we know what virus it is. Now we're going to go back to the home page, back to your main form, and we're going to make the buttons do something. So with the browse button, we're going to create a T file operation of open dialog box. And we're going to create it with nil. Now with that, we are then going to, on its execution, get the file name that the user has selected. So we're going to use if, or if executed, then the file name is selected, which is named file name. The edit box that we had, we're going to pipe that straight into there, like so. And finally, we're going to free it. And we're just going to save it and see if it works. Now we get an error here, and this is one of the places that I fucked up, so I messed up, so we're going to take out the int string, as it's already a string, and we're going to try it again, and we still have errors. And this is a spelling mistake here. I've missed the 5 out, and we still have an error, and it's because f size is actually an integer, so we're going to have to move our int to string here so that our value returns a string, and we still have an error, and that's because the default value that I told it to return is an integer again, so we're just going to have to turn it into a string. And it's compiled successfully. So we're going to check our browse button works properly. And when we click it, we get the open file dialog. Let's close it and see if it works again. And it does. So let's select a file, select the test file, and the path to the text file ends up in the edit box. Now we're going to move along to making our scan button work. We're going to save it. I'm going to turn the telly down. And on our scan button, first of all, we're going to check to see if the edit box has anything in it. This is very important as we can't scan things that don't exist. So if the edit box text is nothing, so there's nothing in there, which is the default, then we're going to begin. We're going to display our user a nice message to say, please select a file, using a message box, which just takes a string and creates an alert. So we're going to put our string in here, please select a file. And then we're going to exit this function if we have given the user this message as we can't proceed with no file. So providing that we do have a file name, we are then going to reset the GUI bit, so the labels, and we'll clear the form so that it doesn't give you a false positive based on the last file that was scanned. This is just fairly basic. You know, you don't want your user confused by the interface. So finally we're going to clear our ListView, if I can spell it correctly. So we're going to clear it so that there's no results in it. And then we're going to call the function scan file that we created earlier, and it doesn't like it. Probably because I haven't declared the unit scan engine yet. This is very important. If you don't declare them, they don't work. It doesn't know where things are if you don't tell them where they are. So we're going to go up here and we're going to quickly add scan engine as a unit. And now we've added it, we still get the message saying that it's not there, so I must not have declared it at the top of the page, and I haven't. So we're going to copy our procedure and we're going to put it at the top of the page. And if we go back to our main form, our error's disappeared. And if we compile it, we successfully compile. So if we now select a file, I'm going to go with the SCAR test file, and we're going to scan it. And as you can see, it successfully detected the test file. And now to make sure it's not just detecting everything, we'll scan another file. And as you can see, it's gone back, but our results are still red. So we're going to reset that as well. So if we scroll down, where we reset it to NA, we're now going to reset the font color back to black instead of to red. And I believe that is all Fs. So now we're going to test it again. So we're going to select our file, the one that we know gets detected. And here's our SCAR test file again. And we're going to scan it, and it's infected still. And now we're going to go back and we're going to scan our other file that we scanned. And we hit scan. And as you can see, the text goes back to being black. For any user that doesn't know, the SCAR test file is completely harmless. It's simply a test file used to test antiviruses. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I'd like comments on below if you want me to go into more depth. Anything else, what you'd like to see, the upcoming episode list. So thanks for watching and goodbye.